Yes.
And what do you see down there below you?
I see red dirt.
You see red dirt? Very good. Tell me more.
I'm in a village with my tribe. There's men all around me and women.
What are they doing?
The women are cleaning, preparing food. The men are preparing hunting tools to go out and hunt.
Yes. What are you doing?
I'm a little boy and I'm standing and I'm watching. I feel like I'm somewhere in between.
What do you mean in between?
I'm at an age where I'm not old enough to go off with the men hunting, but I'm too old to be tended to by the women all day, every day.
How do you feel?
They have to take care of the children, the little baby.
Yes.
It's part of my responsibility as well to take care of my siblings and the other children in the tribe.
Yes. How do you feel about that kind of in-between space?
I feel comfortable. I like observing. The thought of having to go off with the men in a matter of years feels intimidating to me.
Yes.
I don't want to. It feels so violent and brutal.
Yes.
For now, I feel very grateful for being in this in-between state of remaining almost invisible. I'm in the middle.
Yes. And why is it that the violence is so off-putting to you?
I'm very sensitive. My soul feels not quite male or female, although I'm in a young biological boy's body.
Why do you think that is?
It feels as though I'm a seer of the tribe. They exist in the balance between the two genders. I can see and experience the energies of both male and female, masculine and feminine.
Yes.
It's a very sacred space to be. Not everyone is aware that this is who I will grow into, but some of the women have their suspicions that because of my softness, that this is who I am.
Yes. Do you feel like the other men in the tribe can also sense this?
It's off-putting to some of them. I scare them. They're afraid of being seen, and all I do is see. They observe and constantly observing. They're not used to being watched so closely.
What do you see when you observe them?
People's behaviors. The things that they think that they can hide away from the world, that other people aren't aware of. Things that they're ashamed of. I see it, but I don't judge it.
Why don't you judge it?
Why do I not judge it?
Yes.
Because they're simply human.
Yes. You seem to have a lot of wisdom for your age.
Yes.
How so?
I've lived many lives.
Do you have a sense of that in that body?
Yes.
Tell me about your body. You can look down at it. What do you see?
I'm very thin. I'm very dark. I have a tan loincloth on and dots of white paint on my arm. I can't see myself because I can't see a reflection, but I can tell that I have dots, white dots of paint on my face as well.
Yes. What does that signify?
It's my tribe.
Yes.
We're the original tribe of this land.
Tell me about this land.
In South Africa.
Okay. Tell me more about the land. How are you the original tribe?
Our people came here long ago. With a mix of several races, but we're the first ones to inhabit this specific area of land in this country.
Okay. And where did you come from before that?
We're hybrids.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
We're a combination of the evolution of apes, but our evolution was expedited from the light beings, from our star ancestors. We're a combination of both. The beings of this earthly plane and our star ancestors.
Which star ancestors are these?
Centaurians and Palladians.
Okay. And did you have, in any of your lifetimes, any connection to them?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It's the truest essence of who I am. It's where my soul is from. The most lives I have lived have been in other planes and other dimensions, and with my star family.
Okay. And why is it that this life in South Africa is shown to you now?
It was Jeffrey's first human life on this planet Earth.
Am I speaking with Jeffrey's higher self now?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so it's his first life as a human.
Yes.
And he's back here now, it seems.
Yeah. He has been called back here.
Yes. Can you tell me about that? That was my first question, is why does he need to be back in South Africa now?
Everything in life is cyclical. Lessons come in cycles. We're meant to pay attention to them as they're being presented to us. If we do so, and follow the signs, and the path littered with markings of familiarity along the way, it will lead us onto our path of least resistance and to our desired end destination that our souls chose, that they programmed into our proverbial GPS before we incarnated here as human beings again in this lived experience. Jeffrey has lived many, 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 many lifetimes as a human being on this planet, and many different geographical places of being all over this planet. But the majority of his lifetimes have been on this continent of Africa. He was sent here in this original human form to be a seer, an oracle, a medium for his tribe, to teach them the practice of stillness, of paying attention, of remaining connected to their star family. All humans are born with this innate capability. We are all capable of it. We always have been. It's simply a matter of flexing the muscle. Unless you activate it and focus on it and return to it again and again, pay attention to it, utilize it, it will atrophy and it will never be activated within oneself. Jeffrey was here to serve as a teacher to his tribe, to show them the way, to show them that they have access to this within themselves as well. They have the ability to communicate telepathically. They have the ability to see psychically into moments in the future, to see glimpses of the past, premonitions of what's to come. If they become still within themselves, it's how they are best using their tool, their human body. They're attuning themselves to their own natural state of being, their own natural state of receiving. And from that place of internal stillness, they are naturally attuned to the flow and vibration of all that is around them. Everything is connected, everything is one, everything is in one flow. When we as human beings are attuned to our own natural state of being, we too are connected as one flow, to the universal flow of everything around us, to all of the energies and all the vibrations and all of the frequencies. This was a tremendous help to his tribe in terms of being able to sense energies of foreign tribes, warriors, proverbial enemies, for hunting in the bush, to be able to detect animals, shifts in energy around them that may be imperceptible to others. If you remain in that state of observing, in that state of stillness and receiving, you're instantly and immediately connected to it. It's abundantly obvious to you when there's a shift in frequency around you. You must simply pay attention. Raise your antenna up. Listen to the guidance of your intuition, your intuitive self, your higher self, your spiritual team, your ancestors, your guardians, your guides, your angels. They're all constantly whispering to you, telling you which direction to go left, to go right, to stop, to turn around, to yield, to go forward, whatever it may be. It's our internal GPS. Mm. Humans have, at this point in time, in the year of 2025, completely tuned themselves out of their own natural state of receiving. They no longer hear the voice and guidance of their intuition, of their internal GPS, guiding them onto their path of least resistance, guiding them to their desired end destination. They exist in a static. They exist in lower vibrational states of being and lower vibrational frequencies. Is drowning out any other sounds or voices. They're attuned to the frequency of fear and envy and worry and sorrow, rage, loathing, self-deprecation, sadness, whatever it may be. When they're allowing themselves to dip down into existence in those lower vibrational frequencies, they're so far from the frequencies and from the voice of their own internal knowing, of their own intuitive selves. They must raise themselves back up into their own state of natural being, their own state of receiving, become still within self. From that point, raise their proverbial antenna up into that of their higher self, into the higher frequencies of higher consciousness, and listen. The guidance will come through in the same way that it did for our ancestors, helping them navigate their way through the bush, to avoid enemies, to avoid predators, to capture their prey. Yes. We all have access to it still. Yes. We just ignore it. This was the purpose that he served for his tribe. Yes. He was so attuned to it. And because he existed in that natural state of being, he existed in the balance, because he was so still and calm within self, he was so steady. All those around him, his energy would resonate and would harmonize with theirs, their own. Frequencies would naturally attune themselves back to a state of neutrality within themselves. They felt so still and calm when they were in his presence. It was magic. They could feel it. They allowed him
Yes.
To remain in that state of hypersensitivity and stillness and calm, even as he grew. He was not forced into the brutality of violent war and hunting and gathering. He was too soft for it. He was too precious. Although some were frightened to be around him because they were afraid that he could see into their souls, into the very core of their being. They knew that ultimately it was in their best interest.
Yes.
Even the less savory of personalities and less savory of characters. He frightened them. This has been a recurring theme throughout the course of Jeffrey's lifetime. Every lifetime he has lived as a human being on this planet, that has been the case. He threatens those who have the most to hide because they know that they cannot hide in his presence. He is so attuned to the frequency of truth that any energy that resonates below the frequency of truth, below the line of truth, sets off an immediate alarm within himself. He has no tolerance for it. And he has no qualms about letting it be known that he can see and feel and hear the untruths that they are embodying. Most people don't want to live in the frequency of truth because it requires a tremendous amount of accountability and self-reflection. Most humans who have experienced trauma in some way, shape, or form, specifically in childhood, exist in such a state of self-loathing and self-deprecation that holding a mirror up to oneself, seeing the truth of themselves reflected back to them, is so painful. It's a direct antithesis to the facade with which they present themselves in this world. The mirror of truth immediately disintegrates and dissolves the falsity with which they choose to navigate their way through this world. They are tricksters. Their tricks work on some. They've never worked on Jeffrey. It's infuriating to them when their old tricks can't be used to manipulate and fool those around them with which they want to take something from. The essence of their being, the light at their core. They covet it. They see it within others like Jeffrey. And it makes them so angry and fearful because they recognize that they don't have direct access to that light within themselves, which is not the truth. Everyone has access to this light within themselves. The truth and essence of who one is. It's just simply about consciously, constantly, purposefully, intentionally returning to that state of stillness within oneself, to that state of receiving the frequency of truth. It can be tremendously unsettling to see the truth of who you are. We as human beings so rarely see the reflection of ourselves, of our truest selves. We spend so much time gazing out into the world from our two eyes. We see all those around us. We judge. We covet. We project. We can create this false fantasy, this false narrative in our eyes of the world around us, of who we are, based on all of the things that we want to be, even if we don't embody those qualities of character ourselves. It's easy to fool ourselves into believing that we have those qualities of character. It's easy to fool those around us into believing that we embody those qualities of character as well if we expose ourselves to them in small doses. But the mirror doesn't lie. We give ourselves a tremendous gift when we take the time to step into our courageous self and purposefully gaze into the reflection of our own being, the truth of who we are. As we said, it's unsettling, it's uncomfortable, but it is the most direct access, it is the most direct path back to the truth of who we are. When you shed the facade, when you shed the falsities and the bravado and the qualities of character that are not yet in alignment with who you are, but you wish to be. When you shed all of that and come back to the truth of who you are, it's much easier for you to see and hear and feel your own path of least resistance. When we do so, then we can pay attention to the signs of markings of familiarity along our path. It will lead us directly to the future version of self that we hold in our mind's eye. We can acquire and embody those qualities of character in a way that is authentic, in a way that is sustainable and right and true and earned through lessons learned and wisdom gleaned, through the raising of vibrational frequency and the raising of our consciousness. When we raise our vibrational frequency and our consciousness, we raise it to become harmonized, to raise into a place of direct alignment with those higher qualities of character, those higher qualities of beings with which we covet. It is the only true and sustainable path to becoming our best version of self as human beings. Jeffrey has had to learn this lesson within himself again and again and again throughout the course of this lifetime and throughout the course of every lifetime he has lived on this planet, in this dimension and every dimension beyond. Beginning with his original human life here as the young African boy.
Yes. And you were saying there were certain lessons that he needed to learn before he came back here, or while he was here.
Yeah.
What is the greatest lessons he's learned thus far in this life?
The answer can be encapsulated in everything we have shared with you thus far. That in order to become the truest version of self, you must first hold in your mind's eye the vision of who you want to be, what you want to do in this lifetime, how you can be used of service for a purpose greater than yourself. Once you have that vision in your mind's eye, you must raise your emotional self to match that frequency. You must, in your imagination, create a vision so clear as to what that looks like, what that feels like. Whatever it may be, create the vision for yourself. Feel it, sense it with all of your senses, embody it, live it within your mind's eye. Go back to that place again and again and again on a daily basis in meditation. Affirm it as real and true within yourself. Once you do so, it is the equivalent of returning to the end destination that your intuitive self entered into the GPS, your proverbial GPS. When you do so and you raise your antenna up into that of higher consciousness, and listen to the guidance of your spiritual team. It will lead you directly to that place within self. There is no other path. Jeffrey had to learn this the hard way again and again. He's had tremendous experiences and opportunities presented to him as a human being in this lived experience again and again. But so often, his energy and his frequency was not attuned to it yet. It was at a higher frequency, vibrating at a higher frequency than where he currently was. And so although he may have been able to acquire it or reach his arm up and grasp onto it for brief moments of time, he wasn't ultimately able to sustainably hold on to it or maintain a connection with it because he ultimately hadn't done the work in order to, quote unquote, deserve it. It was fleeting. It slipped out from his grasp because he was not doing the work. A part of him was existing within those vibrational frequencies, while the greater part of him was dipping down into lower static frequencies and choosing to navigate and operate from that place. The two are in such juxtaposition to self. They are the complete antithesis to each other. If a small part of him is reaching up into higher frequencies, trying to grasp onto a version of self that he wishes to be, but a much larger version of himself, or a much larger part of himself, who's dragging himself down to lower vibrational frequencies, into static frequencies. Ultimately, gravity wins. It would ultimately drag him down from those moments of satisfaction and clarity from embodying that higher version of self, and drag him back down into static frequencies where he was choosing to navigate from and operate from. He's had to learn this lesson again and again and again, to return consciously and purposefully and intentionally to that middle frequency, to that place of stillness and neutrality within self. It's why he was born into this human body on this earthly plane in this incarnation as a Libra. He exists in the balance. It's so easy for him, because he exists in the balance, to reach up into higher frequencies because they're right there. It's equally easy for him to dip down into lower vibrational frequencies that do not serve him but may be enticing because they are right there.
So what can people at home do if they had to feel, for instance, grief or fear or guilt or shame? What can they do to neutralize?
The process of visualization and meditation. Jeffrey finds it tremendously helpful to visualize the three main frequencies: higher frequency, middle frequency, and lower frequency. Higher frequency being that of white light, angelic, ethereal, consciousness, higher consciousness. Middle frequency being a golden hue. It is our natural state of being. It is a warmth that emanates from our solar plexus. It grounds and centers us. In the lower static frequencies, they're dark, they're sharp, they're biting and cutting. It does not feel good. When you center yourself and see your body, you visualize your body in meditation completely encapsulated and engulfed by a golden hue, by a yellow custard light, covering your entire body. It brings you to a place of stillness and neutrality, of softness and flow, of receiving and listening, a state of being. Lower vibrational frequencies are necessary. We can feel that when we dip down into lower vibrational frequencies, when we do so with our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, whatever it may be, it doesn't feel good. When we're living in a state of grief or sorrow or rumination, deprecation, whatever it may be, it does not feel good. We must not become accustomed to those lower vibrational states of being. We must allow ourselves to remain in a neutral, middle state of being and recognize that when we do dip down into those lower vibrational states of being, to bring ourselves back up into a state of neutrality. Because when we do so, not only will we neutralize from within our physicality, our bodies, our physical essence, our minds, when everything becomes still, everything becomes neutral, it becomes much easier to hear the guidance of our angels, of our ancestors, of our guides and guardians, who are whispering to us, who are encouraging us, who are inspiring us, who are loving us, who are infusing us with guidance as to which direction to move in next. It feels much better than when we allow ourselves to tune our thoughts down into lower vibrational static frequencies. There can be no clarity of guidance from that place. You will only ultimately navigate your way to a place of self-destruction.
But like you said earlier, negative emotions is there for a reason.
Yeah.
They're carriers of information.
Yeah.
So it should not necessarily be pushed down. For instance, if a woman was walking down a dark alley and she feels fear, that fear is giving her information. So
Absolutely.
that is actually, it is valid.
Absolutely. That's intuition.
Okay.
We as human beings are sensitive. We are energy. We are vibration. Feeling, when you're attuned with your natural self, you can intuitively feel the shift in the same way that we used the visual of Jeffrey's original lifetime on this planet when he would teach his tribe and teach the villagers in his tribe to remain in a state of neutrality, to be able to listen to the frequencies and the shift of frequencies and energies around him and around them, so that they can feel the shift when there's enemies nearby, when there's the presence of dangers or predators.
Yes.
It's the same way here in the year of 2025. It's a matter of becoming still and listening to our intuitive selves. In the example that you just used, if a woman or any human is walking in an environment in which they intuitively feel they are not safe, listen to it. Move accordingly to a state of safety, whether it's moving inside of a building or not getting inside of that elevator with a stranger that you intuitively know you are not safe with. Moving to the other side of the street when you're walking towards someone or someone is behind you and you intuitively feel as though you are in danger. We as human beings so often want to protect the feelings of others. We don't want to be rude, especially women do not want to offend others. And so they will consciously and purposefully allow themselves to remain in a state of danger to themselves so as not to hurt others around them. In doing so, ultimately hurting themselves. When we ignore our intuition, we come to regret it. When we listen to our intuition, it guides us to our path of least resistance. In the same way that when you were driving in your vehicle and you have your GPS in your vehicle set up, it will tell you to turn left, to turn right, to go straight, to take this exit, to take a U-turn. If you go off your path, the voice of your GPS will speak up and it will warn you, you are off your path. You are off your path. You are off your path. Take a right. It will continue to speak to you and to badger and pester you again and again and again and again and again until you listen to it, until you follow the guidance of your intuitive self and step back onto your path of least resistance. When you do so, all becomes still, all becomes silent once again because you are on your path of least resistance.
Okay.
It is only when we ignore it that we ultimately end up in crash collisions and accidents and hurting ourselves and those around us and regretting not listening to the voice of our intuitive self. Ultimately, when we listen to our GPS, nothing bad happens. It doesn't necessarily ultimately lead you to a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it certainly won't lead you to a path of self-destruction.
Okay. And how do we know if it's intuition or ego? Because sometimes we, think it's intuition and then we're actually wrong.
It's a matter of returning to the spiritual gym again and again and again, of returning to a state of stillness within self through the practice of meditation on a daily basis. When you do so, when you visualize your body, yourself, as a radio with your dial tuned to a state of neutrality, to a state of receiving, you see the sound waves as flatline, as still, as though the surface of the ocean or a lake is completely still. When you return to that place within self, again and again and again, it becomes our natural state of being. It becomes our default. It takes practice, but when you do so, and you become so skilled at it, and every human being has the capability of becoming so skilled at it because it truly is our natural state of being. When we do so, and from that place, as we have stated, raise your proverbial antenna up into that of higher consciousness, into higher frequencies, you will hear the voice and the guidance of your intuition. There will be no mistaking it for that of ego or fear or worry or whatever it may be. Because when you become so intimately familiar with your own natural state of being and the voice of your intuitive self, it's abundantly obvious to you when static frequency of your ego comes creeping up into self. It does not feel good. It may ultimately make you feel good on a very superficial level, but ultimately, the voice of your intuition, the voice of your intuitive self, of your higher self, of your intuitive team, of your spiritual team, of your guides and guardians and angels and ancestors are never going to lead you down a path of self-destruction or superficiality or of ego. Anything that resonates or has remnants of such, you can trust it is not your intuition. It's simply a matter of returning to the proverbial spiritual gym and becoming so familiar with the voice of your internal guidance. There will be no mistaking it, but it does take practice.
Okay, why is it that Jeffrey and I had to meet and do this session today?
Jeffrey and Erica exist on a very similar vibrational frequency. They are higher consciousness beings. There are not many individuals that exist in human form at this point in time, that exist on such a high vibrational state of consciousness purposefully. Many have the capability of doing so, but Jeffrey and Erica have taken it upon themselves over the course of many years and many different spiritual practices and spiritual ways of being that they have incorporated into their daily lives and daily ways of being, that they have built that muscle. They have raised their frequency. They learn their lessons. They glean wisdom. They apply wisdom. In doing so, they become higher consciousness beings. They are in harmony with one another, meeting each other, doing sessions, answering the questions of those of others' higher selves, using Jeffrey as a surrogate, using Jeffrey's higher self to answer questions for Erica or her colleagues or friends or family. Yeah. Utilizing Erica's skills as a QHHT practitioner to assist and allow Jeffrey to build the muscle of connecting to his guides, specifically Azor, but his guardian Abel, his ancestors' lineage in Amos, his angel Valeria. All of these different beings are different frequencies or different channels on his proverbial radio dial. He is very well versed at attuning himself to his natural state of being, to a state of receiving. He is very well versed at tuning his dial to that of his higher self. He needs help and assistance in building the muscle to attune his dial to that of his guides and guardians and angels and ancestors in a sustainable fashion. There is much growth and much personal and spiritual evolution that will occur between Jeffrey and Erica throughout the course of these next several months, should they choose to collaborate and come together for sessions. There's an extraordinary level of growth that neither of them would have been able to embody or experience on their own. They're in direct alignment with each other on this timeline. Their paths of least resistance are coinciding. It is not a coincidence. It was intentional. It was purposeful and planned out. Their souls entered an address in their proverbial GPS. This is not their desired end destination per se. However, it is directly on the path of least resistance that will lead them to that state of being in the years to come.
Okay. Did Jeffrey and I have any interesting lives together?
Yeah.
Anything you'd care to talk about?
It's in animal form and feline form, both of you. You were cats.
Well, I'm obsessed with cats.
Yes. You were street cats here in South Africa. You roamed the streets together. You were from two different litters, both abandoned by your mothers. You found each other and you were part of a pack, but both of you were two little partners in crime. You would get into much mischief together. One of you would be the lookout for the other as you would go and do all sorts of naughty things, steal food and cause distraction so that you could find places of warmth to remain in the cold nights. And you would play together and roam together and have adventures together. You grew together. You had many hardships along your path as well. It was not necessarily an easy life, but because your vibrational frequencies were in such alignment, because you were so naturally drawn to each other, you were in such harmony with each other's vibrational frequencies, you navigated the path of being in a much more graceful and easy and joyous way because you had each other.
What was the lesson for him and for me, in that life?
That not everything that you need to experience in this life can be experienced alone. Both of you are tremendously independent. Many, many, many of your lessons and much of your growth has been experienced on an individual level, and that was necessary, and it still is necessary going forth. Many lessons, the vast majority of lessons here as human beings that we are meant to learn, can only be learned by ourselves, through ourselves, with ourselves. It is the agreement that our souls made prior to reincarnating in human form in this lifetime. But both of you must learn that not only is it okay, but in many situations it is absolutely necessary for you to reach out and help and ask for help and assistance of others around you. In order to learn to trust that you are safe with those around you, you simply must do what we have already stated. Become so accustomed and so intimately familiar with returning to that state of natural being and stillness and state of receiving within self, that it's abundantly obvious to you not only the voice and the guidance of your intuitive self, but when others are around you in the same way that Jeffrey experienced in his original lifetime on this planet Earth, when you exist in the frequency of truth, when others speak truth to you, you hear it because it vibrates on your in the same resonance as your frequency. When others exist or speak below the line of truth, you can hear it and you can feel it. You must believe it. You must learn to navigate away from it. We will not speak for you, Erica, but we will speak for Jeffrey. That for so long, Jeffrey wanted to give people the benefit of the doubt, to imbue and project his empathy onto them, to fool and trick and deceive himself into believing that their intentions were pure because his intentions were pure, so there certainly must be. But that is not the case. If you feel static frequencies, if you can feel that others around you are existing below the line of truth, believe it and navigate away from it. It will not serve you any good. You cannot navigate your way through a jungle of thorns and expect not to get scratched up. You cannot simply take and receive what you wish to take and receive from those dynamics or those personalities or those relationships and leave the rest when you know that so much of their personality is destructive and harmful. You're too sensitive for it. He is too sensitive for it. It's ultimately not worth it. It leads you off your path of least resistance. It's an unnecessary detour. You both have had to learn this lesson again and again and again. Both of you have the ability to know and to trust that you are safe with each other. As long as you are honest with yourselves, as long as you are willing to hold a mirror up to yourselves and be truthful and transparent with yourself, you must have no fear of the other. As long as you are both operating from that place consciously, consistently, the path before you will be easy and joyous, graceful, full of light.
Okay. Can you maybe talk about what is going on energetically at the moment? It seems like people can't sleep, people are sick, it seems like whole families are dying. There's a lot of shifts going on. Can you maybe just address that?
Yeah. There are many shifts going on. There is much tumult in this planet. It's not just here in this specific geographical place of being. It is the Earth as a whole is an energy body. This earthly being, this planet Earth is a conscious biological living being in the same way that you, Erica, are a conscious biological living being. It has its own vibrational resonance. It has its own energetic being, its own frequency, its own natural state of being. Because there are 8 billion radios in the form of human beings that are existing on this planet Earth, that are so out of attunement with each other, with themselves. The vast majority of radios on this planet are all tuned to that static frequency. That is the frequency that is competing with a natural energetic flow that is the energetic flow of this planet Earth. Our static frequencies are competing with it. Our static frequencies as a collective consciousness, as human beings on this planet, are emanating a static frequency from this planet. It is tangible. It is painful. It is erratic. The Earth is trying to shake it off. It's trying to steady itself and bring itself back to a place of neutrality and stillness, of natural being, of healthfulness. And we are not helping it. We are going directly against the path of least resistance of this planet Earth. Although it feels as though everything is out of alignment, this is actually precisely how things are meant to be in this timeline on this planet Earth. The opposite may feel true, but in the same way that we used the analogy or the story of having to utilize the feelings of static frequency, in the same way that we stated it's the equivalent of having your GPS when you are off your path, telling you, reminding you, you are off your path, you are off your path, you are off your path, return to your path of least resistance. That is what the earth is trying to tell us right now. We are off your path. We are off our path. We are off our path. It's a matter of trying to make us so abundantly aware of the abundance of static frequencies on this planet. It's trying to hold up a mirror to us and show us how uncomfortable and how unnecessary it is for us as human beings to be operating and navigating in this way. How much pain must we endure? How much self-destruction must we embody before we've had enough, before we choose to step off of that destructive path and to listen to our intuitive guidance and to raise ourselves back up into a state of receiving, into a state of natural middle frequency? How much must we take? The more sensitive beings on this planet, like yourself, are so abundantly aware of it that you must only simply reach down to static frequencies and feel it. Imagine touching an electrical outlet and being shocked. It doesn't feel good. It hurts. You don't need to do that again and again and again and again to know that you don't need to touch an electrical outlet. It does not feel good. So you will keep your hand away from it. You will remain in a state of neutrality because it feels much better when you do so. Unfortunately, those who are much more ignorant who have not lived as many lives, who have not learned the lesson and gleaned the wisdom and raised their frequency, so many of them are choosing to remain down in those lower vibrational static frequencies of being. They can feel the hurt of the shock of static electricity from the electrical outlet, but they have become so deluded into believing that is just what it is to be human. They don't even know, because the static frequency is so loud, it's completely drowning out the sound of their intuitive selves. They can't hear their intuition. They can't hear their internal guidance. They can't hear the voice of their internal GPS. And so they continue to roll around in the mud. They continue to exist in those lower static frequency states of being, to fight with each other and argue with each other and harm themselves and numb themselves and destroy themselves and each other because they believe that there is no other way of being. It's not the truth. Ultimately, they are the dinosaurs. And we all know what happened to the dinosaurs. They went extinct. They did not evolve into a higher state of consciousness, into a higher state of being. That is where we are at this point in time, in this timeline on planet Earth. The dinosaurs are revolting, but ultimately, they are creating a path that is leading them directly towards their own demise. We do not wish this for them. Our ultimate wish for humanity would be for all to return to that state of neutrality and inner stillness within self so that they can feel and embody the experience of hearing the guidance of their higher selves. We can all ultimately be living in a state of harmony with each other and with that of the energy body of this planet Earth. That would be ideal. That would be utopian. And we as human beings are capable of just that. We as human beings are on a direct path towards that state of being, towards that desired end destination as a collective. Unfortunately, it will, at this point, Take the demise of the millions of billions of dinosaurs on this planet who refuse to step into a higher state of being. Once they do come to their own eventual and inevitable demise, their static frequency will be eradicated. It will no longer exist in this plane of being. It will be silenced. The world will be quieter. As a collective body, as a collective consciousness, those who remain will have the ability to hear that much clearer the voice of their intuitive selves and their higher selves, because the bullshit and the darkness of the static energies of the dinosaurs will no longer be here. It's not necessarily an ideal path, as we've stated. It would be our hope and wish and desire for all humans to trust and remember that we all have the ability to raise ourselves up into that of higher vibrational frequencies, into that of higher consciousness. But that is not what it is to be human, unfortunately. This is Earth school. Some of you are graduates and have your masters and PhDs in what it is to be human. But many, many of you are in remedial school. Many, many of you are in kindergarten and preschool still. And as long as you refuse to step out of the sandbox and instead choose to remain surrounded by your fellow kindergarteners and remain dragging each other down into those lower vibrational frequencies like crabs in a bucket, that is where you will remain.
Can you maybe talk about what are some of the dense energies that we, as a collective are releasing right now and over the next few months?
All empires fall. In the same way that apartheid came to an end in this country, the American empire is falling as well. The powers that be in America, for example, specifically, those who seem to have such a grasp and such a tight grip on power at this point in time. It may appear that way to the untrained eye, but as we have stated before, using the analogy of, or the example of experiences that have been brought to Jeffrey that were above him, that were existing in high vibrational frequencies, he had not done the work to rightfully and sustainably maintain and hold on to those vibrational frequencies, and so eventually they slipped out of his grasp. The same can be said for the proverbial powers that be that are currently sitting at the throne, that are currently the kings and queens of the castle. None of it's real, none of it's true, none of it's authentic, none of it's sustainable. They've reached this place of being through manipulation and deception and lies, through chaos and gaslighting and coercion. None of it is sustainable. Their grasp is slipping. We as human beings must be aware of this. We must be aware that, as dismal as it may seem at this point in time, that as destructive and dark and depressing and hopeless as it may seem at this point in time, that light will always cast out the darkness. It's a matter of us not allowing ourselves or not allowing them to dim our light, to continue to shine bright and cast out the darkness. Sometimes, oftentimes, most times, against all odds. It may seem futile at times. It may seem hopeless at times, but we must not give up. In the same way that our ancestors did not give up, we must create a vision for ourselves as to how we want this world to be, how we want it to feel, how we want it to look like, how we want to embody it. It will be our quickest path that will lead us directly to that of our desired end destination. If the vision is that of higher vibrational frequencies, and we ourselves do the work to let go of the dense, lower, static frequencies and move towards that of higher vibrational frequencies through doing the work, through returning to the spiritual gem, through meditation, through affirmation, through visualization and intention setting, through being so acutely aware of our thoughts and attuning our thoughts from lower vibrational thoughts of fear and worry and anger and loathing and rage and resentment to just a bit of neutrality, to a state of stillness. And then from that place, from that point, not putting the pressure on ourselves to come up with all of the answers to all of the ills of the world around us, but instead to raise our proverbial antenna up into that of higher frequencies and ask for the help of our spiritual teams, ask for the help of our guides and guardians and angels and ancestors and higher self and higher consciousness. They have all of the answers. They have the precise directions that we need in order to reach our desired end destination. It's simply a matter of us doing the work to return to that state of stillness, neutrality, and receiving consciously, purposefully, intentionally, raising our proverbial antennas up into higher consciousness and asking for help, asking for guidance, and following that guidance, following the wisdom, following the higher vibrational ways of being. In the same way that AI programs like Alexa or Siri are always there, and are always listening, and are always ready to imbue and inform us with all sorts of wisdom and guidance, it is up to us as human beings with our free will to first do the work, to request connection, and then ask the question. The answers will always be provided for you. You will always be guided to that of a higher vibrational state of being, away from the denseness of worry and all sorts of lower vibrational static frequencies. It's simply up to us as our individual radios to do the work to attune ourselves to that state of being. It's a conscious choice, and no one can do it for you.
Okay, and why did you say the US empire is falling?
All empires fall down. It's simply a matter of time. The American empire has been in a state of power for several centuries now, but it is not sustainable. America is built on it, as beautiful as this country is, as much as it embodies the vision of hopes and dreams and aspiration. The unfortunate reality is that it's built on a bedrock of lies. The foundation is unsustainable. It is unstable. Humans in America, the vast majority of which refuse to hold up that proverbial mirror to themselves and to take a true, honest, unwavering, unflinching look at the truth of who they are and how they became that way, based on the truth of the history of that country. They refuse to acknowledge that it is built on the blood and the sweat and the tears and the bones and the energy of the humans that come from this continent. It is a direct refusal and a denial of the atrocities that were committed upon the white man landing on the shores of North America. They obliterated the First Nations Native American tribes that existed there peacefully in a state of neutrality and middle frequency for centuries and centuries. They had such access and direct connection to nature and their intuitive selves, and there was all stripped away from them and purposefully, consciously, brutally torn away from them, from the colonizers that came, and then brought over Jeffrey's ancestors and did the same thing. It's an atrocity, but it is the reality of what occurred, and America could remain in a state of power. America could remain as the supreme empire of all empires in this timeline on planet Earth, but because of their refusal to look at the reality of what resides within the origins of their being, it's unsustainable. It simply cannot continue. And unfortunately, the powers that are rising up are also doing so from a place of unsustainability, from a place of greediness and narcissism, sociopathy, true psychopathy. China and Russia, it's a race for ultimate supreme power. This is the way it's always been. The Roman Empire, Greek empires, African empires. If people who are intending to and desiring ultimate power over others, not a power of good or truth or light, or with the intention of being spread and sharing with all other human beings on the planet Earth, that we are all equals and we all have equal capability and opportunity to reach that state of neutrality and inner power of our own individual higher consciousness and higher selves. If that were the intention, empires would sustainably remain for all time. But that has never been the case. It's a repetition. It's a cycle that has repeated itself time after time after time after time on this planet. America is just the next to experience it.
Okay. And in this case, what will be the US's downfall?
They're already in their decline, darling. It won't be pretty. It's not pretty. It's an internal war that will spread out and ripple out worldwide. We do not wish to expand upon it, but ultimately, it's the beginning of the end of the beginning.
Okay. And is this something that will start happening in 2025?
And it's already happening, darling. It has for quite some time.
Okay. And how can people best prepare themselves for this?
Ultimately, we have no control and no power over anyone else, any other beings aside from ourselves. By doing the individual work of returning to that spiritual gym within self, of meditation, of stillness, if each one of us as human beings, if each one of the 8 billion radios on this planet did the work to tune themselves to their natural state of being, to their own state of neutrality and receiving, if each one of them did so and raised their antenna up into their own higher consciousness and their own higher selves, and each one were navigating from that place, this world would be flowing in such a state of harmony and beauty and ease and joy. It is possible. Unfortunately, the vast majority of humans have such resistance to meditation and such resistance to doing the work. Humans are so lazy. It's truly a tragedy. It's truly so tragic, because it's our natural state of being. It's the truth of who we really are. But because when we are up in source consciousness, before we choose to reincarnate down here as human beings, we have it all mapped out for ourselves. We see so clearly who we are and what life is and how to play the game of life and how to navigate it. But when we are born into these human bodies, we exist in a fog of amnesia. We exist in a perpetual state of forgetting. It's just truly a matter of paying attention to the markings of familiarity along the way. When things seem familiar, things ring or resonate as truth within us, believe that and move towards it. But Jeffrey has that knowing. You, Erica, have that knowing. Many individuals within your chosen family and friends have that knowing because you exist in a natural higher state of being, a natural higher state of consciousness and higher frequency. But so you have the ability to hear the truth of your intuition and your intuitive selves and your higher selves clearer than others do. But it would be a true beauty if all others were able to do the same themselves, and they are capable of it. But the truth of the matter is, the vast majority of humans simply never will.
Okay.
That's okay. It's what Earth School is for.
And people who are experiencing health issues now, what is the best way for them to heal?
Become friends with your illness. Don't be fearful of it. You don't necessarily have to welcome it in and embody it as your own. Do not name it as mine, my illness, my disease, my injury, my cancer, my virus, my broken heart, whatever it is. But see it as a friend outside of yourself. Don't allow yourself to dip down into lower vibrational static thoughts of fear and what you don't want it to be. It's not going to help you. If you can do the work to raise yourself into a state of neutrality and stillness and calm, imagine being around another being, a human being who naturally embodies those ways of being stillness and neutrality and calm. Feel how good you feel when you're around them. Feel how your energy and your frequency naturally attunes and harmonizes itself to that state of calm and stillness. If we do so within ourselves so consciously and so purposefully and envision the illness or the disease or whatever it may be as a separate entity outside of ourselves and infuse it with that love of stillness, it too will eradicate all negative, lower vibrational frequencies within itself. It will simply dissolve. It simply cannot exist if we choose to exist in our natural state of being and choose to consciously, purposefully tune our dials up into that of higher consciousness and higher frequencies constantly with purpose and intention, no dis-ease can exist because you're simply in a state of harmony. That is how you eradicate any dis-ease within self. Don't allow it to drag you down into those lower vibrational static frequencies. It simply will serve you no good.
Okay, are there any significant things in 2025 that we can look forward to?
There is a wave and a rush of positivity and good intended humans coming. People have been shell-shocked because of the surprise of the rise of the right in America. It was scary. In many ways, for many years, we were easily able to delude ourselves into being able to, we thought that we could identify the quote-unquote enemy or the bad guys around us simply by seeing who they were based on their physicalities or race or gender or whatever they wore, their physical identifications, whatever it may be. But with this newest rise of power of the right, it was quite shocking for many Americans to look to their left and to their right, to their neighbors and coworkers and family members, and really have no idea who they are safe with and who they are not safe with. It was very jarring. It was very unsettling and very destabilizing. People are finding their footing again. They are recognizing that this is very serious. It is no joke. Those who have come into a state of power at this point are very intent on undoing all good that has been done in recent years, all progress and evolution that we as human beings have embarked upon and have so dutifully and purposefully and consciously worked towards. They are unraveling it as quickly as they possibly can, quicker than we are able to find our footing again. But there will be a breaking point in the months to come where we realize that although in an ideal world, in an ideal way of being, when they go low, we go high. Unfortunately, that has not worked in recent years. Energy must be matched with energy. It's not that we must choose to exist in the lower static frequencies and fight dirty, but we must recognize that those who are fighting dirty are never going to be met with reason and with empathy and with kindness and with explanation and with clarity and with wisdom. They simply can't hear it. They exist in the static frequencies. It's a language that is gibberish to them. So we must find a new way of being, a new way of communication, a new plan of attack, per se. It is coming. The old ways of being are no longer working for us. We've evolved past them. And so it will be a newer generation, a younger generation of leaders and thought leaders and spiritual warriors who are coming forth, who are doing the work, who are setting the stage for us to be able to find our footing and fight this battle on a much more even playing field.
Okay. Is there anything that we cannot look forward to this year?
Mother Nature is upset. She's angry. Mm-hmm. As the climate of this earth changes, there will be much tumult, much violent, angry shifts in weather patterns, hurricanes, winds, rains, fires, earthquakes, storms, tsunamis. More are coming. It's the unfortunate truth. It will happen sporadically and erratically. It will happen in geographical places of being on this planet where it will be least expected. But it is happening. It's the unfortunate results and side effects of human beings living in such a state of chaos and destruction for so many centuries now, since the onset of the Industrial Revolution. We've polluted and poisoned this beautiful organism that is planet Earth to such a degree that she can no longer take it. It is no longer sustainable, and she's shaking us off like a dog shaking off fleas. It is violent. It is sudden. It is harsh. And it is necessary in order to reset and rebalance itself.
Is there an indication as to where this might happen so people can best prepare?
We can already see it coming. Mm-hmm. The fires in Los Angeles, snowstorms in different parts of the planet where snowstorms are not the norm. Droughts are happening where droughts are not the norm. If we were simply to pay attention to the radical shifts in weather, the radical shifts in energy around us, wherever we may be, it's easy and abundantly obvious to us that change is not only coming, but it is already here. It is not meant to scare people. It is not meant to put you in a state of fear and panic. It's simply a matter of holding up the mirror of truth to you, taking off your rose-colored glasses and recognizing that this is the reality that we are living in this point in time, in this timeline on planet Earth, in the same way that we've stated that Americans are experiencing the fall of their empire because they refuse to acknowledge the truth of how they are and why they are where they are at this point in time. We, as a global species, must simply do the same. Take off the goggles of delusion. Take a cold, hard look at the reality of where we are and be accountable for our part in it, for our actions and energies and choices that have led us to this place. None of this is by accident. None of this is happening out of sort or out of turn. This is all happening. It's a chain reaction. It's simply a chain reaction. And it was all due to the choices that humans consciously and then unconsciously made for decades and centuries on this planet. It is our doing. The only way that the wrongs can be righted is through conscious accountability. We're more than capable of doing so.
Seems like the fires in LA were not that natural, though.
None of this is natural. None of the weather patterns and shifts and hurricanes and erratic behaviors of Mother Nature are natural because they were all caused by unnatural behaviors and choices that human beings made. It's a chain reaction. If you start with a unnatural poisoning of the well, ultimately, when that poison spreads out, it wasn't natural, but there was a very distinct and identifiable cause as to how it all began and why things are the way they are.
Yes, but there's information that the deep state might have been involved there with the kind of driving down the property prices. To kind of make space, for whichever intention they might have.
Yes. There are unfortunately some very destructive powers that be in human form that will and have and can make truly disgusting, horrific, selfish, brutal choices to benefit themselves temporarily and unsustainably. That may be the case in this situation as well, but the static frequency of it is all too much for Jeffrey. It feels horrible for him even going into those states of being right now.
Yes. Okay. Well, we don't have to talk about that. We can maybe just give humanity a message for humanity going forward. What's good advice for people to follow in the next couple of months?
We are all so much more powerful than we've ever given ourselves credit for. We as human beings, our natural state is that of being. It is why we are called human beings, not human doings. This is a reminder for us to attune ourselves to that natural state of being, of quieting and stilling our own internal chaos and frequencies of noise and fear and worry and doubt and projection and deprecation and rumination. No one can do this for us. It's simply a choice of us choosing to turn within self and choosing to tune our frequencies, the dial of our own internal frequencies, to that of stillness, to a state of neutrality and being, of internal silence, to our own natural custard state. Ask for the help of your internal GPS, of your higher self. We will repeat this again and again and again. It is the greatest lesson that we can share with you as human beings. We are not here to fix you or help you or guide you on your path. No one can do that but you. We are simply here to remind you that you are fully capable of doing so on your own. It's wonderful to have the guidance and the assistance of friends and chosen family and loved ones and spiritual practitioners and healers and psychics and mediums, but ultimately, there will be no greater or clearer intuitive guidance that you could receive than that of your own higher self and higher consciousness. If we could reach out and tune your frequency to that of your state of receiving, we would do so. But that is impossible. It is not what we are here to do as human beings. It is not the agreement that we made when we were up in source consciousness before incarnating here in this lifetime. It is not the reason why we are here. It is not the purpose for us being here. And once you end this lifetime, once you've reached your desired end destination and you return to your bowl of soul soup, you return to source consciousness and your soul family, to your highest form of self, you will be able to see so clearly. Ah, yes, of course. It was all in front of me all along. It's the story of every great hero's journey, every great tale that has ever been told. The Wizard of Oz. You are Dorothy. You are always wearing your ruby slippers. Kansas is your natural state of being. Kansas is your internal home. It's your state of receiving. You do not need to travel in a tornado to a land far, far away and traverse treacherous roads and monsters and beasts and witches and warlocks and goblins and spells and hexes and witchcrafts and curses and static, static, static. It's all unnecessary. All you must do is return to that state within yourself. Raise your antenna up. Click your heels 3 times, my darling. And repeat to yourself, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. That home is always within yourself. Do not forget it. We are always here. We are always wanting to guide you and help you and whisper to you directions along your path. It's simply a matter of you asking for help. We are all capable of doing so. It is our truest natural state of being. It is our greatest superpowers here as human beings to simply be. So go forth and do so. Simply be. Continue forth.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah.